Hey everybody, this is TJman461, and I'm here to redo the terrible opinions I had in my top 5 best and worst Death Battles videos, because those videos were very poorly made and used a goofy avatar. But now I have this absolutely magnificent one that my co-host Kodo made. Anyways, hold on a moment. Before you attack me in the comments for any of these takes, this is all my opinion. Objectively, these probably aren't the best episodes, but to me they are, so please calm down, because I know how silly the Versus community can be sometimes. Anyways, without further ado, let's get started.
Clowns.
Okay, I know this is an odd choice, but man, I love this one. I remember watching it when I was a wee cartoon clasher watching Death Battle, and this one has always stuck with me for many reasons. Now, obviously I wasn't going to put this one very high on the list, but just hear me out. Let's start with the analysi, I don't know. Joker's is really fun. They go from talking about his backstory to talking about his weapons seamlessly, which is always good. And I love how after they hype up his Joker venom, it pays off in the fight. We'll get to that. Because some Death Battles mention all these weapons but don't use them, but this battle does. And overall, a lot of the jokes made me laugh on a recent viewing. Namely the boomstick mobile, the killing the audience joke, and Wiz's reaction to Joker cutting his own face off. Overall, a very fun analysis that covers them really well. Sweet Tooth's analysis is also really good. Again, seamlessly transitioning from the story to the weapons, then back to the story, and then to his car. Very well done. I also really like how they mention in the analysis that he likes to kill up close and gory, which is also shown in the fight. We'll get to that as well. Overall, a good analysis that gets me interested in the character, since I don't know much about Twisted Metal. Now let's talk about the fight. I love the beginning. You know it's a good death battle when it starts because of food. The voice actors for both do a really good job as well, especially Joker's. He just brings the character to life. The animation overall is great. There's almost no jank at all. My favorite moments before the death have to be Joker when he jumps into the Sweet Tooth and starts fucking with needles while he tries to drive. I also like Joker's "That's funny" line. And honestly, everything Joker does is hilarious. Needles isn't without his cool moments though. I like his dynamic with Joker not taking anything seriously while Needles is menacing the whole time. I like that. That is until we get to the death. Oh my god, Joker's dialogue as he tries to lure Needles out of the robot is delivered so well. And that death is amazing, with the Joker venom finally being fired after being hyped up in the research, and them both laughing as the police come in. It's flawless. I guess my only complaint about the animation is that the fire on Needles' head looks weird sometimes, but I don't care. And of course the conclusion is, in my opinion, accurate. But hey, as long as the conclusion makes sense, I'm all good, cause Versus is subjective. And the ending pun with Wiz being disappointed is really funny. Overall, this is a very good death battle, and I'll be rewatching it many times in the future. Fucking clowns. Okay, I know Chuck Norris memes are outdated now, but I don't care. Now obviously the analyses are gonna be fun because this is a joke battle. But what kinda surprised me on my rewatch was that they partly go over Chuck's real life backstory. I found that pretty cool. It was also really funny how they say the shows Chuck was in were people documenting his life. Overall, Chuck's analysis is really funny, especially them going over the facts. Now on to Segata. Did anyone actually know who Segata was? Name one person who watched this episode to see Segata without knowing anything about Chuck. Oh wait. Anyways, now for Segata's analysis. It's equally as funny and goes over all the crazy shit they could find for him. Which is another thing this episode does well. They really dive into all the weird things these two have done. But enough about the research, let's talk about that fight. The funniest part is this fight has a better destructive progression than Thanos vs. Darkseid. It goes from street level sparring to cosmic shit so well. And seeing pretty much all the wacky abilities mentioned in the analysis is always fun. Also, I don't know how I didn't realize this until now, but Segata uses Saturn to attack Chuck, which is a reference to Sega Saturn. I'm extremely stupid, aren't I? Anyways, yeah, this fight is really entertaining and is up there as one of the best sprite fights they've ever done. But there's one thing that holds it back from being higher. The conclusion. Not because it's inaccurate or anything, but I just wish they could have chosen a victor. I still find how Wiz and Boomstick reacted to the ending funny though. But that's a super small problem. The finisher is still freaking epic, and everything else in the episode is basically flawless, and it can only go up from here.
Oh, these, my boobies.
The fuck is this? Anyways, after reading through the entirety of the Dragon Ball Z manga, and already loving this episode before reading the manga, this one had to go on the list. Plus, Vegeta is one of my favorite characters in Dragon Ball, so there's that too. Along with Piccolo, Krillin, and Gohan, if you're wondering. Anyways, let's talk about the analysis sources. Thor's bio covers him well enough. I like how they go through his character arc throughout the analysis, that was fun. Overall, it's a pretty standard superhero bio with nice editing and goes over the character quite well. Which is still impressive since they've covered him 2 times before this. Vegeta's bio is great too. I know they've talked about him before, but hearing them talk about him after reading through the manga made me happy, so I enjoyed it more than I probably should have. They go from his backstory to his abilities seamlessly, which is always nice. Overall, a very fun bio. Okay, I've gone long enough not talking about the fight. Holy crap, this animation is amazing. It was amazing before I read Dragon Ball Z, but now that I have, this fight really feels like a Dragon Ball fight. The fast-paced action, the tension between the fighters, and the amazing voice acting and dialogue. Now I know manga can't have voice acting, but be quiet. The only things I don't like are very minor, such as Vegeta using the Hakai on the axe, and honestly they hype up the axe in Thor's bio but don't really do much with it. But yeah, that's all. Everything else is flawless. This fight is a freaking spectacle. The visuals are amazing, and the back and forth is done well. And oh my god, the track is such a fucking banger. I literally listened to it on my way to work. Now, some complaints I've heard from people are that Vegeta's "does a god like you feel fear" line doesn't make sense here, but to me it does. He's in Ultra Ego form, so he's literally asking his opponent if he's scared of him because of his ego. It makes sense. Anyways, with that aside, the final flash moment literally gives me goosebumps every time I see it. Now, as for the result, I'm not going to touch that because I don't know who wins and I don't care. God, this one is great, and we're only on number 8. Why'd that rhyme? The button monkeys of Street Fighter and Dragon Ball. Huh, weird. I have 2 Dragon Ball fights in a row. Anyways, I'm not going to talk about this one for too long because the points I made in my top 5 best Death Battles video mostly still stands. It's one of my most popular videos at the moment for whatever reason. Anyways, just skip to number 1 if you want to see my thoughts there. This episode is a joy to watch every time. I love the research because instead of hyping them up, they talk shit about both characters, which is funny and fitting considering who these 2 are. Both analyses are just plain entertaining because of this. Not much else to say. It also has that sweet Season 2 charm. Now for the fight. God, I love it so much. I literally based a few scenes in Dan Hibiki vs Magikarp on scenes in this fight, which has the least amount of likes out of all the cartoon clashes, and you should watch it. Anyway, I did the Godoken scene and the Satsui no Hado scene. I probably butchered that, but sorry. So clearly, if I was inspired by this animation, it's gotta be pretty good. The characterization is godly as well, especially on Hercule's end. I don't know if you say Hercule or Hercule, I'm gonna say Hercule. Having Hercule think of ways to justify him losing or getting hit is a stroke of genius. Dan's characterization is fun too, but the lines wouldn't be as great as they are without the absolutely stellar voice acting. Hercule's voice acting is great, but Dan's is amazing, especially in the Satsui no Hado part. Oh my god, it gives me chills every time with the music choice and how genuinely menacing Dan sounds. I also love how the hits don't feel impactful, which is usually a no-no when animating a fight, but here it's obviously a yes. And I can't forget about the announcer and setting. It adds so much to the fight. It makes it feel like this is really a crossover and not just 2 characters meeting for no reason to do a fight. I also love the taunt scene with Hercule actually being impressed by it. That's actually hilarious. We'd be here all day if I went over everything I liked about this fight. Considering I rank this above Vegeta vs Thor, shows this episode is very good. The research is entertaining and funny, the fight is a blast, and the conclusion is explained really well. One is a weakling in a universe of gods, and the other is a weakling in a world of mostly normal-ass martial artists. Man, how are we going to top this? It's weird because this one used to be my favorite of all time. Oh well, taste change. And it doesn't mean I like this one any less now, it just means I've watched other ones that just ever so slightly beat it. It doesn't change the fact that I really love this one, and the fact I based an episode of my own show on this should prove that.
And welcome back to Championship Boxing!
I guess this is okay. I mean, it's not really about boxers.
Okay, this one holds a special place in my heart. When this episode came out, I was a part of the Death Battle Fanon Wiki, and around this time was the peak of that wiki. Everyone was hyped for this episode, especially me, considering my username. So I was so happy it was so good, and that my boy TJ Combo won. Anyways, now let's talk about the actual episode. I enjoyed both bios. Balrog's was fun, and on my very first watch, I was convinced Balrog would win due to his strength. So they did a good job hyping him up. I like the joke Boomstick makes about Balrog's eyes. Honestly, this is just a really fun bio, and I enjoyed watching it. I especially like how they lead into the calcs. And the calcs themselves were interesting like the elephant one. Overall a neat bio. TJ's is really good too. The way they tell his backstory is a lot of fun, and I really like how they incorporate the background music into it. The editing is also really amazing here with all the clips from the games. Oh, never mind, they had a Blu-ray print ad in the episode 0 out of 10. Okay, now for the fight. I really like the announcer. It seems like that's a common theme here in the list. If I had a nickel for every death battle on this list with an announcer, I'd have 2. Oh no, it's the joke police. Too many people have used this joke. I gotta hide. Anyways, yeah, the announcer is cool. I also like the banter between the two. It really feels like a real boxing match. I even heard that Torian studied boxing in order to make this fight as accurate as possible. Now that is dedication. I could be wrong on that though, I think that's what I heard, but I'm not sure, and I don't want a million comments correcting me, so that's why I'm saying this. Anyways, I love the progression in the fight. It goes from a fairly normal boxing match, Balrog begins cheating, the referee gets taken out, and they start bringing out the big attacks. I also really liked how TJ Combo felt like the underdog. This literally feels like a Rocky Balboa movie, in a way. The part where TJ comes back and does his final combo on Balrog had me cheering when I first saw this. I mean, they really want to make you cheer for TJ with Balrog insulting him. Which is why I love the voice acting in this as well. I especially love the death and the announcer's reaction, that's always a highlight when I rewatch this. God, I love this animation. The only teeny tiny nitpick I can make is that Balrog's robe or coat or whatever passes through him, but I don't care. This is still a banger. I also like the music they used in the fight. Now for the results. As I said in my original top 5 best death battles, I really like how they explain this. Going over their actual boxing styles and strategies to decide the victor is a really cool idea. Overall, this is a classic, and is the best Season 4 episode for a reason. When I first saw this episode, I didn't know anything about the boys. But now I'm a huge fan, and I'm impatiently waiting for a new season. As for Invincible, I watched the whole thing in one night. So going into this episode for the first time, I really wish I saw it after seeing The Boys as well. But hey, it was still a great episode. I mean, that's obvious since it's number 4 on the list. Okay, I'll stop rambling. I loved both analyses. Oh god, the joke police again. I've used the joke too many times. Oh well. I've been to joke jail before due to the Man of Steel joke I made in Frank West vs. Crazy Dave, so I'll be okay. I'm gonna keep using the joke. Anyways, I really liked Omni-Man's bio. The jokes were all pretty funny, especially the mustache joke at the beginning. I also liked that they were able to go over a lot of his backstory and character without getting into comic spoilers. That was pretty neat. The editing is also really cool. I mean, all comic character bios in the modern seasons are, but still. I also liked the cutaway gags, and the ending to the bio was surprisingly wholesome. Great bio all around. Now for Homelander's bio. I really liked the beginning. It was really funny how they compared Vought and Disney. I know a lot of people do that, but still, the way they built it up was funny. And hearing them go over Homelander's backstory is just really fun, and they do a good job with it. Also, we gotta talk about that calc. It's amazing. I mean, what other Versus show has done a cum calc? And as always, the abilities are gone over well, and the editing is great too. I also like how they try to make the end of Homie's bio wholesome, but, well, it's Homelander. Now for that fight. Yeah, it's a little short, but come on man, that's literally the only flaw. Let's talk about that opening. Oh my god, this is one of the best openings in all of Death Battle. Both characters are perfectly in character. Homelander's monologue is awesome, and is elevated by the voice actor. I also really like how Omni-Man subtly looks to the side and sees Debbie's death before it's revealed to the audience. And honestly, him having no reaction is perfectly in character. Along with the I'm going to feed you your own heart line. Man, everything about this opening is just perfect. I even liked it before I knew who Homelander was. Which is something I want to bring up. I really like when Death Battle can make you want to know about a character. That's how you know they did a good job with the portrayal and research of that character. I don't think I would have checked the Boys out without this episode, so I gotta thank it for that. Now for the actual fighting part of the fight. The action is really good. I like how this is one of the first Death Battles to actually portray that it's clear one of the characters stomps. Usually they make it look close, but here you can pretty much tell that Omni-Man isn't using his full power. He even has to teach Homelander how to fight correctly during it, which is pretty funny. I also like that they did 2 references in one, with Omni-Man holding Homelander towards the plane, and the plane getting cut in half by him. And the ending with Omni-Man coming out of the fire was really cool. The death is also perfect. It captures the goriness of both shows, and it's a payoff for Omni-Man's line from the beginning. I also like that once Homelander threatened Mark, that's when Omni-Man got serious. The animation overall is really nice. It literally looks like an episode of Invincible, and the track is awesome. It has a feel of both shows, and I listened to it on my way to work because it's a banger. Overall, I really loved this episode. It introduced me to the boys, and I always like revisiting it from time to time.
Huh, you jumped good.
Gee, thanks.
I was going to put this one higher, but the top 3 beat it by just a little bit. Don't get me wrong, this one has absolutely stellar animation, and the research parts are fun too. It's just I don't have a strong attachment to either character, so it's a little bit harder to call it my absolute favorite. I know you shouldn't base how much you like a death battle based on how much you like the characters, but still. And hey, I'm putting this one as my 4th favorite. That's gotta count for something. Anyways, I really like this one. I love both Annihilus Simmer, I don't know how to say it. Jack's battle was a lot of fun. I like the Robin Hood joke. And honestly, it made me invested in Jack's character. So maybe Death Battle will get me to watch Samurai Jack. Honestly, a lot of the jokes in Jack's battle made me smile and or laugh. It was very well written. Afro Samurai's battle was also really good. I like Boomstick's tangent about how so many fictional characters' fathers die, that was pretty funny. I know this episode had a Boomstick dad joke, but it wasn't that big of a deal, and it was still kind of funny. Overall, the jokes in Afro Samurai's battle were pretty much all funny. I don't know who wrote this episode because I'm too lazy to check, but whoever it was, they did amazingly. Also, oh my god, the fight is beautiful. The opening is great, it feels like something from an actual samurai movie. The sword fighting throughout the battle is absolutely flawless. It really showcases both of their fighting styles. Throughout the fight, Afro goes on the offensive, while Jack is on the defensive, and counters a lot of Afro's attacks. It also has Afro fighting dirty with the cigarette he throws at Jack. While Jack has his eyes closed due to the cigarette, it has him still able to fight due to his senses and reflexes. It's things like this that really make this animation stand out. One thing I always liked about the animation is how Jack goes from how he looked in the original cartoon to how he looked in the Adult Swim version. I could be wrong on this, I only saw previews of the Adult Swim Samurai Jack, and it had him with long hair, so if I'm wrong, don't attack me in the comments. Also, both fighters don't actually land that many hits on each other, which shows how dangerous swords are. Heck, my Steve vs. Maxwell animation is guilty of this, when Steve wails on Maxwell with his sword. Which is why I appreciate how this feels like an actual sword fight, and how much thought was put into it. It reminds me of how good Balrog vs. TJ was, due to how accurate it felt to actual boxing. And of course, I always loved the "Whoa, you jump good" line. It's perfect. Another thing I liked was how the rope bridge shows the escalation of the fight in a way, and it's honestly the perfect setting for a fight like this. And man, that death is brutal! The build up to it is amazing, with Afro coming out of the sky, and Jack using the reflection of the water to notice it in time to have his sword ready. It's just so good. I could literally nitpick everything that I like about it. Overall, while this one is only number 4, it still earns that spot for a reason. Ever since I found out what versus debating was when I was a young lad, there were 2 characters I wanted to see in an animation. I guess I kind of got that in Ultimate Cartoon Fighting, but Popeye got one-shot by Goku in that, and it didn't do my man justice. But then we got this episode. Now upon its announcement, as you know, I was planning to have Popeye vs. Saitama be the season finale of the first season of Cartoon Clash. Well, when I heard that Death Battle was going to be making it, I was kind of miffed to say the least. I mean, I was playing it since I started my show, but it's all good now. Mini rant aside, this episode is amazing. I watched Popeye on Boomerang when I was a little man, and I loved One Punch Man. It's one of the first anime I ever watched. So obviously I was going to love this episode. Now the analyses are very fun. I loved hearing them talk about 2 of my favorite characters. The way they go over Saitama's backstory and even what the series is all about is very nice. And I love the part where they talk about Saitama's exercise. Popeye's bio is really fun as well. I mean, they're going over an iconic cartoon character instead of Marvel/DC character number 69. How could it not be fun? Plus, they talk about Popeye's spinach in a similar way to how they talk about Saitama's exercise, where they go into detail on his source of power, which was cool. Sorry if I'm not being very specific on why I like the bios, I just don't find them as interesting to talk about as the animation. As long as they do their job of going over the characters well, going over their backstories, having good jokes, and good editing, I like them. And obviously, both of these battles do that. And now for the fight. I really like the setup. Popeye jumping out of the spinach can because Saitama insulted it reminds me of how Segata jumped out of the TV because Chuck kept changing the channel. That was probably intentional, but I still liked it. I love how in the beginning Popeye actually gets killed in one punch, which is because he didn't eat his spinach, which is a neat way to reference how in the actual cartoon, he usually gets beaten up before he eats his spinach. It's a nice touch. Now the action is really fast paced, and Popeye does his usual cartoon shenanigans, but it also changes the animation styles, which is so awesome. However, the 3D part was my least favorite part of this. I get what they were going for with Popeye because of that meme movie poster, but I don't know, it didn't sit right with me. Other than that, it was still really cool. The animation is spectacular overall, and the pacing of the destruction they cause is done really well, unlike a certain other episode. And let's not forget the voice acting. Popeye's is literally perfect. The voice actor gets his mannerisms down really well. As for Saitama's, I'm not too big on his, but the delivery is done really well. Especially in the part where Saitama is happy he finally found a good fight. The characterization is great in this because of that. I mean, they really did their homework when they did the parts where Popeye kind of talks to himself. I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain what I'm talking about. Just look at the screen and you'll see the part I'm talking about. And as for Saitama, they went out of their way to give Saitama a moment to reflect on what he thinks of the fight. It feels completely in character and is so heartwarming. It has to be one of my favorite death battle moments ever. Also, the conclusion is explained super well. They go over how Saitama's strength isn't infinite, and it really shows they went all out on the research. Especially with how much material of Popeye there is. The way they apply real science to Saitama's strength is really interesting. It just makes me appreciate how much effort they put into it. Plus, I obviously agree with the results since I had Popeye win in mind as well. Man, I love this episode. I can see why it's Biffweed's favorite. But wait, this is only number 3. What could be better than this?
Whee! How did Goku beat being by Superman?
You know, it's funny. I think this is the first death battle I ever watched. Because I remember watching Toonsmith Productions' Ultimate Cartoon Fighting, and watching his Goku vs. Everybody series. Then I eventually stumbled upon Death Battle Superman vs. Goku. So yeah, believe it or not, I think Toonsmith Productions is what got me into Versus, funnily enough. Anyways, holy crap, this one is amazing. Which you could probably guess since it's number 2. I just really like this one because it feels like a finale even more than the other finales. You can tell they really went all out on this one, with the super long fight, the extremely detailed research, whether it's quote-unquote accurate or not, and the overall feel of it. I just love it. Speaking of research, the analyses are very entertaining here. Again, you can tell they were super passionate about these characters and weren't biased at all, even if the comments said they were. Since I read the Dragon Ball Z manga, it made me like Goku's bio even more. I also love how Wiz points out that Goku's power was actually 8,000, not 9,000. That was pretty funny. Because I pointed that out too when I read through it. I went into Kodo's DMs and I was like, hey, why is it 8,000 in the manga but 9,000 in the anime? Sorry about the tangent, I just found this funny on my rewatch. Overall, Goku's bio is really fun. The jokes are all pretty funny, and it's just a good time all around. I also love how deep they go into ki and power levels as well. I just found it really interesting. I'm not as attached to Superman though, which is funny because when I originally watched this, I wanted Superman to win. And as I said in my top 5 Death Battle video, I'm not one of those, how did Goku give me my Superman? People. Now I'm not saying every Dragon Ball fan is like this. No fan base is made up of the same person, obviously. I'm literally a Dragon Ball fan now, and I still think Superman wins. Sorry, I'll get off my soapbox now. There we go. And now I'll start preaching about how fan bases work. Anyways, back to Superman's bio. It's a fun one. Like Goku's research, they go deep into how Superman's powers work, which I really like and find interesting. And again, the jokes are funny. I don't get why people don't like old Boomstick. He's just so charming. Even his horny Boomstick stuff. I just find stupid humor like that funny. I'm sorry. I mean, he calls Superman a hippie after finding out he gets more power the higher he gets. Now, how is that not funny? Plus, the orgasm what now joke almost made me spit out my drink while rewatching it. Okay, now for the fight. I mean, what is there to say that everyone hasn't said already? It's a spectacle. Sure, it's a bit dated, but come on, man. You can see the heart, soul, blood, sweat, tears, and other bodily fluids put into this animation. Plus, as everybody knows by now, it's the longest animation in the show so far. I don't even know what to say, man. It's just perfect. Literally, the only thing wrong is the Team 4-star beginning skit, which feels a little out of place, but hey, it's still funny and works well enough. And that's my only nitpick. Everything after is perfect. The fast-paced action, the usage of abilities, the progression of the destruction, the characterization, the voice acting, everything. And I even referenced the final punch in my season finale Popeye vs. Saitama, where both characters use their signature punch. Obviously, this fight had a big impact on me because of that, right? I know this objectively isn't the second best episode of all Death Battles, but come on, man. I warned you at the beginning you wouldn't like my opinions. I'm holding my ground on this one. I mean, this is a 10-minute fight, and yet it's paced so well that it doesn't even feel like it's that long. Every big moment hits because they give time for them to sink in. I mean, they have both characters sitting there charging their attacks, with the Spirit Bomb and Superman being inside the sun, and it still had me on the edge of my seat even today. I could write a whole essay on why this animation is so good, but you don't want to listen to that. Also, Goku's boot flying in space at the end gets me every time. Now as for the result, it is correct, but the way it's explained is a little wonky. But do I care? No. Like I said, there's clear passion put into this, so the way it's explained doesn't matter. and I get what they were going for after all. Remember, death battles shouldn't be all about the research. The fight is just as important. And hey, as long as the episode overall is entertaining, why should the result matter? Now if it's blatantly wrong, that's a different story. But like I said, the way this result is portrayed doesn't seem like they're trying to make Goku look bad or that they hate Goku, or anything like that. So I don't know why almost every Dragon Ball fan got their panties in a pretzel over this episode. But hey, that's ancient history, and it seems to have calmed down nowadays. I just needed to talk about that. Anyways, this is only number 2. Now we can finally talk about number 1. Okay, if you saw the reaction me and my friends did to this episode along with my reaction to the announcement of it and my Trunks vs. Silver reaction, you probably knew this was going to be number 1. I'm sorry, but this being number 1 largely has to do with the fact that I've wanted SpongeBob and Death Battle for years. I grew up with this show, and it was like all I watched when I was a kid. I also wrote so many Death Battles with SpongeBob characters on Death Battle Fanon. Anyways, put that aside, this is still a perfect episode. It is peak Death Battle. Let's get into it. Both analyses are great. Whoa, I said it right that time. Anyways, SpongeBob's analysis is absolutely hilarious. The way Wiz goes from talking badly about him to talking about how crazy his feats are was amazing. The voice acting for Wiz and how surprised he sounded was done really well and was hilarious. Especially when Boomstick says, yeah, we can end the rundown here, when they go over SpongeBob's healing, and then the way Wiz says, no, I must know how deep this rabbit hole goes, is so funny. The way they explain SpongeBob's backstory was also really good. The funniest part is that it's actually a fan theory, which just adds to it. God, just hearing them make SpongeBob references, name-dropping the characters, and reading the funny sidebars and research screens made me have a huge smile on my face throughout the whole episode. This bio is just perfect. Nearly every joke lands. And with all the stuff they had to go over, they do a really good job considering how much media SpongeBob has. I heard they had to have 2 researchers for him. That's insane. But that just shows how much effort they put into this, and I really love that. This is literally one of my favorite bios Death Battle has ever done. It's just so amazing. I also love the Doodle Wiz cutaway gag. Although I am sad they didn't do a Patrick running to the sun calc. Anyways, if I kept going, I'd just be pointing out everything in the bio, so I'll move on now. Now for Aquaman's bio. Me and my friends were a lot more silent during this bio, but it's still really funny. It's basically the opposite of SpongeBob's where they hype him up, but then realize he actually sucks. Again, Wiz's delivery is great here, especially in the his best feat is literally garbage part. Boomstick is funny here too, like when he says, that's like getting stepped on by 100 elephants. That gets me every time. Honestly, all the times where they bring up something cool but then have to back out of it is funny every time. That's what really makes this episode. The battles do something a little different and it really elevates it. Other parts I like were when they go over the heroes and the Hanna-Barbera cartoon, that was pretty funny. I also really like when they bring up that speed feed for Aquaman. Me and my friends were actually surprised when they brought that up. It also showed that Aquaman really did have a fairly good feat. Plus we got the return of the you get one buddy line. There's also the that's right Boomstick line in this episode which was funny as well. The ending is really funny too, with Wiz talking about what it takes to be a hero, and then Boomstick saying he's about to die. God, I love these bios. They're just full of personality from the hosts. I know a lot of bios are like that, but these just feel different due to how they're written. I just love it. Okay, wow. I spent a lot of time talking about the bios. Let's talk about the fight, because now there's even more to talk about. But before that, I want to point out how they literally say who wins before the fight starts, when Boomstick says, it's time for Aquaman's funeral. Now for the fight. While yes, the portals could have been explained a little better, I still like it. Other than that, we get a reference to the Homelander episode, the Wormy episode, and a My Leg joke, so it all works out. And SpongeBob confusing Aquaman for Mermaid Man for a second was really cool. The voice acting for both characters is great. I can't expect anyone besides Tom Kenny to sound like SpongeBob, but the voice actor for SpongeBob does really well. He really captures his personality. Aquaman's is awesome as well. I love how he has this 90s superhero voice. Now for the rest of the fight. The back and forth is done really well, and the animation is god tier. SpongeBob looks perfect. I think it's best that they did this in sprites because it made it so they were able to do more due to the limitations hand-drawn animation has due to budget. Anyways, let's talk about what actually happens in the fight. Aquaman punching SpongeBob and it having no effect is hilarious. Them hitting each other in the balls is also hilarious. And it's funny how SpongeBob has Aquaman bleeding in less than 2 minutes into the fight. Then we get the Great Neptune part, which made me shit myself laughing when I first saw it. Pretty much every joke in this fight works. I'm not especially fond of SpongeBob getting Aquaman's name wrong, but it's actually a setup for the end of the fight, which we'll get to. Another thing about this fight is that both characters are completely in character. I was scared they were going to pull an Aang and have SpongeBob kill Aquaman out of malice and say, "You left me no choice." But luckily they don't, and they actually have SpongeBob support Aquaman with his own experiences on being called a wingnut and a knucklehead mixed Mazotron, which gives Aquaman the courage to keep fighting, and they actually form a friendship, which is exactly how it should be. I absolutely love it. I wish they had used the Goofy Goober form, but I understand that they couldn't have everything in the fight, and the stuff we got was really good. We had the karate gear, bubbles, the magic pencil, SpongeBob absorbing water, and more, which makes me really happy. We also get the French narrator in the fight. Man, they really did their homework on these references. Now let's talk about that ending. I love the build up to it. We have SpongeBob screaming, "I'm ready," and Aquaman's voice actor doing a great scream as he launches the ocean at SpongeBob, which is just so amazing and well animated. Now the death. This is peak death battle. My friend during our reaction pointed out how it has better pacing than the emotional scene in Jonathan vs. Tanjiro, and he's right. SpongeBob begins crying because he didn't want to kill Aquaman. He just got too into the fight, and I'm so glad this is how they did it. I can't stress enough how well they handled SpongeBob, and it just fills me with joy every time that I watch this episode. We also have Aquaman tell SpongeBob that he should be super friends, and he says this even after his body is mostly gone, so my headcanon is that he's using his telepathy to talk to SpongeBob, and that's so wholesome. Then we get SpongeBob making a grave, that's this Ocean Man, which pays off on the joke about SpongeBob getting his name wrong. This part literally made one of my friends tear up. This ending is exactly how I was hoping it would be. This is what's great about Season 9 as a whole. Even if Jonathan vs. Tanjiro's emotional moment is a bit poorly paced, it's still good. It makes me even more excited for Season 10. The conclusion is also so funny, with Wiz talking about how SpongeBob's speed feat is the fastest they've ever calculated, along with calling him our god at the end. I love it. This episode is why I love Death Battle. The research was hilarious, you could tell the crew had fun making it, the fight was well animated, the characterization was amazing, the conclusion was fun, the track was a bop and fit the fight perfectly, and there was an emotional ending. It's absolutely perfect. With how much I wanted SpongeBob, it gave me exactly what I wanted. That is why I think SpongeBob vs. Super Friends Aquaman is the best death battle. Alright, let me know what you think of my picks in the comments, leave a like, and also subscribe if you want. I have a versus show of my own, so if you subscribe it'll make me want to keep making episodes for it. Also join my Discord, I'm active there every day. Remember, this was all my opinion, so no being a meanie in the comments. Instead, let me know your favorite death battles. Anyways, that's all I have for this video, so have a good day.